Good afternoon. I'm Christine Taylor Lewis, and on behalf of the Afro-American Historical Association of Fauquier County, I thank you for your continued support, and I welcome you to this, our 19th in a series of conversations with family historians and others who will share their genealogy research or provide information related to local African Americans and their history. As I've mentioned on each of these events, part of the mission here at AAHA is to collect, document, and share and preserve U.S. history with a special interest in the history of African Americans in Fauquier County. We hope that these virtual events will remind you of the richness of our history and culture here in Fauquier County. So we encourage you to visit our website at aahafauquier.org. There you will find a link to historical photographs, archives, books, artifacts, ongoing projects, as well as videos of our previous social media events. There's also a virtual tour of our museum, a link to news stories that are related to AAHA, and there's an interactive story map that gives individual histories of African American communities, churches, and schools in Fauquier County. Now on Saturday, October 1st, we launched our newest online project. It's called the Digital Map Center, and it houses 3 interactive maps. These include an 1861 land tax map showing landholders and their property. There's a map of Fauquier African American cemeteries, and a map of the Works Progress Administration, or WPA, historical inventory sites in Fauquier County. Each map is designed to provide a hands-on, user-friendly way to explore these aspects of Fauquier's history. In addition to all of this, our website has another new link, the Morgantown School Project, a moment in time not to be forgotten. The project's mission, in a nutshell, is to stabilize the building and grounds of this small school, which served the Morgantown African American community for over 70 years. So visit us at aahafauquier.org, where you can learn more about these projects and much, much more. Now, on last Thursday, we began a new posting on our Facebook page in which we give brief history of African American schools in Fauquier County. And the first posting was about the Asheville School in Marshall. This week, we will highlight Bethel School in Warrenton. So we invite you to join us on Facebook as well. Now, today's guest is not a native of Fauquier, but his roots run very, very deep, and his family ties are quite extensive in the Fauquier community. I first met him briefly at a family reunion in Hume this summer, and I wasn't able to get there until the gathering was just about over. But what I observed was him still making his rounds, chatting with folk as he was heading to his car to drive back to Pennsylvania. Now, having that memory, even today, speaks volumes about how much family really matters to our speaker. Robert Darryl Herder was born in Levittown, Pennsylvania in I missed the year. He is the second child of, I'm sorry, I missed the year.
67. I'll claim 77. Now I'll take off, 10 years, no problem. But I was born in 1967.
1967. He's the second child of Isaac and Diane Herder. He attended elementary and middle school in Pennsylvania and later moved to New Jersey, where he completed his high school and obtained a degree in computer science from Rutgers University. Darryl is currently a software architect at an electronics article surveillance company in New Jersey. He is a minister of the gospel and an assistant pastor as well. He has been married to his wife, Cheryl, for 18 years and is the father of their 13-year-old daughter, Seren. Darryl has been doing genealogical research since 2017. He started this journey as a favor to his mother, who needed help building the family tree. In just 5 short years, he has helped several people connect with lost family members, discover biological parents, and learn more about their family ancestry. His research has fueled his love for connecting with new family members, and he continues to discover new branches along his journey. Hello, Darryl. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So honored to be here. I feel like I'm home, to be honest with you. I always get such an amazing feeling when I travel to Fauquier County. There's such a great spirit there, family and of love. And I experienced it with you in just a short time that we spent together during the reunion.
So thank you so much for joining us. And it's quite a delight to have you here. As we discuss today's topic, which is Family Matters, the journey to discovering our ancestry, Darryl's cousin, Bunny Grant Johnson, will also join in the conversation. So we usually have a general set of questions that we ask our guests. And we want to start with you first telling us about how you became interested in doing your genealogy research.
Well, as you shared in my bio, I started with my mother. She made a simple request. She had a friend who had joined Ancestry.com, and her friend, encouraged her to make a small tree for herself. And so my mother started the process, but she's not real tech savvy, so she asked me to give her a hand. And, I kind of did it begrudgingly because I wasn't really that interested in it, but found after, finding records and actually seeing in the census records, like, people, family that I knew and people that I had heard of, identified and enumerated in the records, it just sparked a real interest in me. And so I just began to dig deeper on both my mother's side and my father's side. And now it's become, my wife would probably agree, an obsession. Something that I'm really interested in. But as you pointed out, Christine, it's not just looking at records. We can have, written records, but it's connecting with people. Like I want to connect with my great-great-great-grandfather's ancestors on another branch. Like, so the desire to connect with people that are part of my family is what motivates me.
Yes, I remember when I started researching and the excitement and the joy that I felt when I first saw some of my ancestors' names actually written, in the 1800s. And that connection was there, and it really felt good to see them. I'd heard some names, and some I had not. But as you said, that connection really gives us a great sense of warmth.
Yes. Yes.
Feeling. So how far in years have you been able to go back to trace your ancestry?
Well, along this Herder Butler branch, I've been able to trace back to my fourth great grandfather, which is Israel Butler and Nancy Tapp. Israel Butler was born about 1786. And so that's, I guess, 230 plus years of distance from now. And Nancy Tapp was his wife. She was about 5 years older. And so they lived in Fauquier County. They're enumerated in the 1870 census. And they're also in the Freedmen's Bureau record. It states that they were in need of assistance in 1867, shortly before they moved with his son, Jacob.
Oh my, that's awesome. 1786?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
1786 was the age the year he was born. That was mentioned in the Freedmen's Bureau record as well.
Okay. So what resources did you use while searching your genealogy? And which ones did you find most helpful?
Many resources. Can I share my screen? I'd like to kind of share just firsthand some of the resources that I found very useful, in this journey. I'll just share. Let's go here first. Okay. And I'll just share screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
All right, so this is I'm going to just start here. This is my family tree. So one of the main resources I use is Ancestry.com. You know, it's where I started, and I find it to be the most useful.
Okay.
It's a paid subscription, you know, so that's a challenge for many people. But the truth is, Ancestry really has, you know, hands down the greatest amount of information. And one of the things I find most beneficial is it's database for people matches. Now, you know, some people are more interested in, you know, doing research and basically building up their family tree. Others are interested in confirming and validating their tree by DNA. And so I would say I do a combination of both of those. And so because of that, I like Ancestry. And so I just want to kind of give you a little, this is my family. This is my daughter, Seren, and my brother and sister, and my wife, Cheryl, who's on the call, and me.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And so this is my father and my mother. And so the branch that originates in Fauquier County is my father's line. And so going up to my father's line, we see his father, which is Floyd Herder. He didn't know his father very well. His father left when he was very young. So I didn't know anything about his father. I knew his name, but that's about it. But, you know, after I started doing genealogical research, I connected with some other people who had branches also from my branch, and it was really exciting. So I really built up my grandfather's branch. And so my grandfather, he is the son of John Herder. I don't have a picture of him. And his wife is Mary Pinkett. And so I'm a Pinkett on my father's side on one branch and a Herder on my other branch.
Okay.
And then I am the second great grandson of French Herder and Eliza Butler. And that's how I link with many of the Butlers that are on the call today. Eliza Butler, the sister of the ancestor of many of the Butlers who are on the call today.
Okay.
Right. And so Ancestry.com is one great resource. Another great resource that I use is called Family Tree Now. And I don't think this is a very well-known site. Well, one of my other cousins, in fact, the first cousin that I connected to on Ancestry was Desiree Pinkett Ross. And she is a descendant of the Herder line as well. She just sent me this link as to help me out. This link helps me. The reason why it helps is because I can put in a living person and find out their information. For example, if I just put myself in. And so this may be kind of off-putting for some people, but if you're doing genealogical research, it's very useful. And so most people, the integrity of their search will do things in the right way. If people are being deceptive, then they'll try to find this information for bad reasons. So this is me. And so if you can see where I've lived, but more importantly than where I've lived, you can see who my family is. And so what this does is it connects basically your public records and what they think is a tree based on where you've lived. And so as you can see, my wife is here. And again, you wouldn't necessarily know. If I was looking at somebody who I didn't know, I wouldn't know who the relationship is, but you can kind of guesstimate what the relationship is based on the age of the person. This is my mother. This is my father. And so you can then build a tree. And so this, the goal is to get before right now, 1950. If you can find somebody who was born before 1950, you're in a great zone, because now you can find actual census records to build a tree.
I noticed the name Cynthia Diaz Herder.
Cynthia Diaz Herder was my aunt.
Well, there was a Cynthia Herder who went to school with me.
Okay, so Cynthia Herder.
Cynthia was a couple years younger, I think. Yes.
Yes, Cynthia Herder is a descendant of James French Herder. James French Herder is my second great grandfather's brother, and that's actually Sadie Herder's husband.
Okay, that's awesome.
All right. Another resource is DNA Painter. This is a great resource. So if you're into the DNA, you can actually, let's say you have a match that you're not certain how you relate to the match. You can actually build a tree. I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's use my mother. And so what I've done is I put a tree, I exported my tree onto this site, and then you can put in a list of your DNA matches. And you can put in the DNA in how many centimorgans. A centimorgan is a way that you measure the amount of chromosomes you share with another person. And so you can put in the chromosomes that you share with a person, and then this will estimate and give you a probability of how you're related to that person based on the number of DNA kits that you can support.
Awesome.
So this has been very helpful in determining how I'd be related to people. Okay. And I'll stop here. One other site, and this is a free site. This is familysearch.org. And so this is a site that allows you to search for records and allows you to build a tree, and all this is free. And so for those who don't want to necessarily pay the subscription fee that Ancestry requests, you can go to this site and get all the same records that you would get on Ancestry, and you can build a tree for free here.
Okay.
Okay.
Family search. Awesome. Awesome. Now, you were telling me about family heritage.
My heritage, that's right. I'm sorry. myheritage.com. So there are Ancestry.com, FamilyTreeDNA.com, myheritage.com, and 23andMe. Those are the big players, the 4 big players of genealogical sites that allow you to create trees, but also allow you, and I'll mention that again. So it's Ancestry.com, FamilyTreeDNA.com, it's myheritage.com, and it's FamilySearch.org. And so MyHeritage is a great site. They have great tools, and that's actually a segue if you went into a presentation I created from MyHeritage.
My wife's got a class, correct?
All right, cool. So what I like to present
I'll let her know
is
she's back in town.
a tool that is on. Let me go to the site real quick. I'll just give you a little rundown. Let me share my screen again.
It's okay. We can just move on, and when you're ready to present, as you have it scheduled.
All right, sure.
Yeah.
Don't leave me to talk, and Christine, because I will talk this whole time.
That's okay. I don't mind at all. So did you find any surprises you mind mentioning, or what do you think about when people find surprises?
Yeah, a lot of surprises, surprises, I mean, a couple kinds of surprises, we talked about this in our conversation before the call, family matters, you can kind of take that both ways, that families are important.
Yes.
That matters, but also that there may be some family matters that you have to contend with when you're doing genealogical research.
Yes.
And so, many of us have an understanding and the view of our ancestry, of our story, of our identity. And many times our identity is tied into who we are, who our parents are, who our grandparents are. And so oftentimes, especially when you involve DNA, you may discover things that don't line up with what your image or what your narrative was.
Yes.
And that's a challenge, and I must say to anyone who's interested in doing genealogical research, and then including DNA research, you have to be prepared to discover anything.
That's
if
right.
you have an issue with finding out that your dad may not be your dad or your grandfather may not be your grandfather, then I would recommend not taking the DNA test. Because you may find out this information. And so the surprises were, the people, that we thought were, again, what it does for us is it expands our village.
It does.
It expands our village. It expands our village.
That's right.
It has to be the perspective that we have, because my people that have raised me are always my people. They are my
That's
father.
right. That's right.
But now I have a whole new branch of people that I connect to who look like me, who may have the same mannerisms.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I just connected just yesterday. I connected a family with there was a young man who had a DNA test, and he didn't know who his family was. He thought, his grandfather was his grandfather. And so, after connecting with him and doing some research, we found out that he was another branch. Amazing how much he looked like his biological grandfather. But more importantly, this guy was a musician. He was a real Afrocentric advocate, into Pan-Africanism. That was just his life. Didn't understand why how it really connected to the rest of his family. It turns out this biological family had the same narrative. There was a family conditions. Now, there was no connection. This guy grew up in California. His family lived in Pottstown. And there was absolutely no connection, but genetics can play such an amazing role in how we approach life and how.
Yes, that's right.
And so I was just fascinated by that.
That's right. You know, family gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of security. It serves as a guide to how we relate to others, you know,
Absolutely.
outside this unit. So it's so very important. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for those demonstrations of the various resources that are out there. So impressive. Thank you. So do you have any other advice besides being prepared to receive what you might learn in DNA in terms of doing genealogy research that you can offer others? Any other advice?
I do. I have a.
Okay, go on.
I feel like I'm like really bursting out of the seams. So you have to forgive me. Like this is my part, and so you know, in my family, you know, I see Cookie, I see my wife here laughing because they know I'm absolutely getting ready to explode right now. So I'm trying to be calm. Yes.
That's okay. Be excited. It's all right. We're family.
To answer your question, I do. I have just a little presentation. This is a simple one, but it's really a mindset that I've adopted in the way that I attack research. So can I share that? Sure. All right. So another share screen. All right. All right. And this is short. So Family Matters, a journey along the Herder Butler line. And so I want to start with a quote. This is Booker T. Washington, and he says, "Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed." And the truth is, many of us have obstacles. Our whole past may have been an obstacle. We may experience things that we probably wouldn't share with anyone. But I'm here to tell you that those are stepping stones to who you are today. And so do not forsake your humble beginnings. Don't forsake the things that you experienced. Don't forsake the things that many have told you to be ashamed about and to hide.
That's right. As
African Americans, we have grown up being told to hide and to keep secret those things which should be our springboards and our platform to succeed. Yes, I'm a descendant of a slave, and that is something that I'm proud of because look where I am. You know, and I think instead of being ashamed of who we were, we should celebrate the fact that, my goodness, there are people who had a silver spoon all their life from generation to generation who have not as much as we have achieved. And so that's a point of excitement for me. All right, so I just want to start. So this is my methodology. So the first thing I do in attacking any genealogical assignment is to collect. I collect data. So we collect from the sources I told you about, collect by going to library, always collect. The greatest tool to any genealogical research is data. As long as you continue to collect census records, collect Freedmen's Bureau records, collect birth certificates, marriage records, all those things that demonstrate and basically indicate and give you more sources for the information you're looking for. All right. After you collect, you compare. So you cannot, I'm a preacher, so I gotta pull the Bible. The Bible says that all are get understanding, and that you should always get counsel by two or more people. You know, don't just take one source of information and consider it the gospel. You must compare scripture upon scripture, I say, but you must compare data upon data and make sure that you have enough information to be able to compare. Many times when you look at census records, you'll find that you may see a record about a family and the names may be completely wrong. And so you may discard that. But then when you look at another census 10 years later, you'll see the same families and the names are spelled different. That is your confirmation that that original record was correct.
Yes.
Okay. And the last one is collaborate. This is impossible to do alone. It's important that you collaborate with other people who are doing the research. most of the greatest discoveries I've made in research is when I collaborated with people who thought that the information was insignificant, but it was absolutely very valuable. One other thing that I want to say here that's not on the slide is that, and this is not something that a lot of people agree with. You know, most people feel like when you're doing genealogical research, I can turn this off now. When you're doing genealogical research, that you should build up. So always like build to deepen your tree. So I'm going to go up from one generation. I'm going to go to my grandparent, great-grandparent, great-great-grandparent. But I would say that you build wide. And what I mean by that is build out the siblings, build out the siblings' families, build out the neighbors. Because what you'll find is if you have a brick wall is just a place where you can't seem to go any farther in your research. That when you build wide, you may see that a neighbor knew or somebody lived in that house, and there's a relationship that is confirmed in a neighbor's household that will give you information about your own direct branch. So my tree is huge. I build out my family, I build out my neighbors, and I built out the people that live around my family, because it all points back, especially in a place like Fauquier County, where cross-generational, there's a lot of crossbreeding. Because when you live in a region for more than 2 or 3 generations, there's always going to be people that are married to each other and connected to each other genetically. But that's helpful for me. It's a hindrance in DNA because you don't know how to separate, but it's helpful as far as finding out information.
Yes, awesome. Beautiful. A wonderful demonstration. So now, let's take a look at the chat room and see if there is a question. There's none. Cheryl is saying hello. Okay,
that's
now,
my wife.
Yes, good to meet you, Cheryl. Talking about your family line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where your earliest Herder ancestors were from? Were they all from Fauquier?
Yes, and so what I've done is to answer the questions that you had in the bottom section. I thought it would be a good idea to kind of use one of the tools I find really cool on MyHeritage. And so I built a little bit of a movie that talks about the questions that you asked. And so if you would allow me,
thank you.
To show that.
So I'll just sit back.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me know in the chat if you can hear and everything when I start. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, I see.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Addie Miles' deep story?
No, I don't see that.
Okay.
I don't see that.
Let me see, hold on. Let me share the
I see a background.
I was sharing the incorrect screen. Okay, here we go.
Hi, Sharon.
Sharon, cousin Sharon?
Yeah.
Mute your line. All right, are we ready?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Addie Eliza Miles.
You hear?
I'd like to tell
It's
you
very low.
our life in Fauquier County, Virginia. I am the youngest child of French Thomas Herder and Eliza, and Butler Herder.
It's very low.
French was born around
Okay,
1852 in Fauquier County, Virginia. He was the son of Frank Wallace Herder and Amanda Donald. My mother Eliza was born in 1859 and was also from Fauquier County. She was the daughter of Jacob Butler and Eliza Cross Hall Butler. Here is a copy of the 1870 Federal Census for Center, Fauquier County, Virginia, 2 miles outside the town of Warrenton, on Route 674 Grays Mill Road in New Baltimore. It is the earliest recorded census record for my mother. As you can see, she is enumerated with several generations of her family. Her father Jacob's parents were Israel Butler and Nancy Tapp Butler. My great-grandparents are the oldest recorded ancestors in our family, living some 230 plus years before this present year. Also living there were some of my brothers and sisters, Sandy, Alexander, and his wife Laura Nelson Butler, and his children, George, Martha, and my mother Eliza. You may also notice the family living next to my family. They were the family of William Henry Smith, the son of William Rowley Smith, who was our slave owners before emancipation. Oftentimes, Former enslaved people continue to live near their former slave owners. The number you see in the column next to Henry's occupation is the value of his land, $20,000. The next number is the value of his property, which oftentimes included the value of the enslaved people that were owned. My father and mother were married on September 27, 1873 in Fauquier County. As you can see from the marriage register, my father French was 21 and my mother Eliza was 18. Their parents were also listed on this register. Also notice the spelling of my father's name. Those recording this information were often not very literate themselves. They usually spelled the name phonetically according to how the people verbally stated their information. Here is a copy of the 1880 federal census for Scott, Fauquier County. This is the earliest record of my father French. His occupation was listed as farm laborer and they had 2 daughters at this time, Fanny and Maddie. Many of my mother's Butler family settled 4 miles from center, down to Route 600 on Beverly Mills Road in Pilgrim's Rest. We all attended school and church at Beulah Baptist Church in Pilgrim's Rest, which was established in July 1899. One of the founding trustees was our relative Arthur Butler Sr. Pilgrim's Rest School was built on property granted to us in 1887 by Anderson Donovan Smith, one of the sons of our former slave owner, William Rowley Smith. The school obtained water at a private well approximately 200 yards away. This is a snapshot of the family of my mother, the Butlers. There are several notable people in Fauquier and Prince William counties who come from our family. Thurman Nelson, the grandson of my brother Sandy Butler, built a retirement home in this area. Along with other Butlers, our family migrated down Route 600 to Route 55 into Prince William County. We have documented family living in Thoroughfare and worshiping at Oak Run Baptist Church. Hester and Butler, my mother's first cousin and the daughter of my grandfather's brother Eli, married Louis Primus. Along with other families in the community, they were instrumental in establishing a school on land they donated. In 1870, my mother's Uncle Shem was working on the farm of Elizabeth and Lucy Blackwell in Center District, Fauquier County, and lived there with his family. By the 1900s, his son Hamilton was married to Savannah Welch, living in a rented house in town, with 4 children, Elizabeth, Hamilton Jr., Cornelius, John, Mary, and Ruth. His daughters became educators. By 1940, Ruth had completed 4 years of college, was married to William C. Taylor, living in Madison Town, teaching in Fauquier County Public School. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. Now, I'll turn the conversation back to my great-nephew, Darryl. And always remember, you are the ancestors that your children's children will be talking about. So, live your life like it.
Awesome. That is absolutely extraordinary.
All right.
So toward the end, she mentioned Ruth Taylor.
Yes. Ruth Taylor was Ruth Butler.
Ruth Butler, right. Yes. I remember her and her sisters, Miss Mary Fanny and Elizabeth Walker.
Bunny should chime in.
That's right. They were teachers when I was coming up.
Yes, they were. I'm pulling up the tree. Yep, they were teachers, and yeah, one was actually the wife of William C. Taylor.
That's right. Yes, she taught 2nd grade in Rosenwald. I didn't have her, but she taught 2nd grade when I was there.
Okay.
And then her other sister, Ruth, Elizabeth Butler Walker, taught me in 5th grade.
Awesome.
It's exciting, the connections.
Yes. Awesome.
And Miss Mary Fanny, I just remember her from being very, very active at the First Baptist Church in Warrenton on Alexandria Pike.
Yeah, I wanted to show you just a snapshot of how they fit in the tree quickly.
Yes, awesome. Something how the connections happen.
Yeah, so here's Ruth Taylor, and they didn't have any children together, but this is William C.
Right.
Hamilton. Now, interestingly, John Butler was one of their brothers.
Okay.
Lena Pinkard is actually a cousin as well. She is under Hester Butler, who is the daughter of Shem. And so here is Shem Butler Pinkett. Some people may know this man. I think I had actually talked to someone who actually knew him growing up. Let me remember. These are other members of the Butler family, Pinkert family. If you know any Pinkerts in the area.
Pinkerts. Pinkerts in Warrenton on Blackwell Road, maybe.
Yeah, so they were in Prince William, and then they moved to DC. I think the family generally moved.
Okay.
And so here's Shem, and he married Mary Ford. So this is again Israel's, and so I believe that Israel had more children, but these are just the ones that we've been able to report. Most of them have been discovered through DNA matches, and so some of them obviously are census records, but back then, before 1870, we weren't really enumerated in the census, so it was difficult for the kids that were older to know which ones were the children. But through their death records and some of their marriage records, we determined that. And so where I have a DNA symbol is where I have confirmed DNA matches.
Okay.
These branches.
Awesome. Man. This is remarkable. Just extraordinary.
It's so fun. It's so fun. But,
so you gave us all the names of the Herder lines. Do you know where any of them attended schools? I think you mentioned
yeah, so in the video,
Women's Rest.
Women's Rest School. Yeah, I don't really have, Bunny probably knows more. Bunny and Sharon, do extensive research. I love those cousins. They are really very much, they go to cemeteries, they go to the libraries, and they, like Sharon does a lot of legwork for me in Faulkner County because I can't actually be there. So she'll send me copies of things, she'll send me books. Very passionate about the research. She's like a guru on land deeds and looking at all that information. So that's been really helpful as well.
Good. So is there a Herder family cemetery that you're aware of?
There is not that I'm aware of, but I know that, and there's not a Butler family cemetery, I don't believe. And one of you ladies correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that there was a Herder field, which was really cool. And so that was actually, yes, in fact, Karen Hughes and Angela Hughes, the Herder field is behind, I believe they own the land now, but it was like, we would get to it from their house. And so a few of our cousins went to the Hughes house, to the White House, to go see the Herder field. And so they took us back there to see the field. It's just a big open field, but it was just really cool that this field was named the Herder field, and it was, part of our family history.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how did the Herders make a living, if you know?
Most of it was farm labor. French was a farmer for most of his life, and most of them were farm laborers. Now, in the, I'd probably say 1900s, early 1900s, mid 1900s, some of them were kind of migrating up north, and a large number of our Herder family migrated to North Hills, Pennsylvania, to live there. And so my great-grandfather was one of the first ones that came from our family. He was a chauffeur, he and his wife, and he did what often many of them do. So in the census, I see that, his son was born, my grandfather was born in 1916, and in 1920, he was still living in Faulkner County, and my great-grandfather and his wife, Mary, were living in North Hills, in North Hills, Pennsylvania. So a lot of times they left their children with their parents while they made living and established roots in the new area, bringing the kids up. And so that's what they did.
It's part of the Great Migration.
So in fact, most of our herders are in North Hills area. Lemuel was one of my great-grandfather's brothers, and his family, he had about 10 children himself, 10 boys, in fact. And so many of the herders are in this area, in the North Hills area here.
Oh. So do you have any endearing stories from some of your Herder ancestors or any of your ancestors in general?
To be honest with you, they're all endearing to me. Like, every story is endearing to me. One of the stories that I found most intriguing was actually about French. You know, that he just was a hardworking man who loved his family. And there was a story about, you know, one of his daughters who, you know, was involved, you know, got involved with someone, and she had a child, and the child was of mixed ancestry. And you know, that was really challenging for them at the time. And he raised that boy. In fact, I don't know if Elaine Coxton's on the line. She is the descendant of Thomas Marshall Herder, who was, you know, he was a mixed young man. And you know, again, it happens many times, but I think the fact that French took and raised this young man, and so he is part of who he was, because he became a great man. And you know, again, Elaine is wonderful. I had the opportunity to meet her and spend a lot of time with her. But just knowing that history and knowing, you know, that despite insurmountable odds, you know, we continue to press on and continue to love our family and hold them close. You know, not to ostracize them, not to reject them, but to.
That's right, to embrace them. Yeah, as we would have them embrace us. But I appreciate all the demonstrations that you did with the various resources. You're just a dynamic speaker. I appreciate your presence and your research. Look on the chat board and see what comments are there. Well, Cheryl says, great resource, the wonders of modern technology. Sandra says it was great. Karen White to everyone, is wonderful. Carolyn Bland, I love the video, great resources. A. Thomas, thank you for sharing. The presentation was very helpful. Tracy Herder, awesome. Angela Davidson, hello everyone, this is really nice. Love your great aunt. Yes, she was awesome. And Karen White to everyone, the Herder field was once owned by the Herder family prior to our ancestors purchasing it. So that's very interesting. Our ancestors, I imagine she meant
no, that's Karen. That's Karen. She meant her ancestors.
Her own ancestors. Okay, so there's anything else you want to share?
I would just say to everyone who's on, just to pursue the journey. You know, pursue the journey. You know, it's you know, ancestry isn't for everybody. Some people are really comfortable not knowing, you know, but I would say if you have a heart to know, I would say run with it and collaborate and connect with people. You know, for me, you know, especially living in these times, you know, many people I, you know, come in contact with, you know, didn't realize that they were, you know, people were cousins that they've known growing up, you know, their lives. And so, you know, it's important to know who you come from. Some people got married not knowing they were cousins, you know, and so I just think it's important that we know, you know, where we come from. And also realizing that family isn't just genetics. You know, family is a community. It's a village of people who care for each other and who have each other's best.
That's right. So family does matter. Family is important. It gives us a sense of identity, as we said. And it serves as a guide to developing meaningful relationships with others outside of our home, you know, in the greater society. So family is important. It also establishes a spiritual framework for us. The spiritual life is very important in our lives, whether we accept it or not, but it is. So Darryl, we thank you for joining us. And we thank you for, as I said, for the various demonstrations and the resources that you have, just extraordinary. Some I've heard of and some I hadn't, but then my heritage, where you were able to have your aunt speak to us, that in itself is worth purchasing for me.
Absolutely.
Having, and the DNA painter, you know, that's another one. So you came with some extraordinary resources that I hadn't been familiar with. So we thank you for that. And thank you for your research and all that you presented to us today. Awesome. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in our chat. Otherwise, we will begin to close on this session.
Someone did make a statement about Charles Butler and his daughter Sadie Butler, Herder Bailey, are buried in the Mount Nebo Church. Yes, I've actually gone there with a set of cousins to see that, which is really great, to actually see. I'm also a Pinkett, and so Asbury Pinkett was the pastor of Mount Nebo, and for many years. So that's also one of my second great grandfather's brother. So it's great history in Fauquier County.
Yeah. So your roots are deep and they spread wide, as
Yeah.
all of ours do. As all of ours do. So
Absolutely.
thank you. We thank you so much. And for those who are with us, our next visit on October 25th, our guest will be Joseph Roby. And he'll come on and talk to us about the research that he's done and he's in the process of doing related to the enslaved at Oakley Farm in Upperville. So that should be very exciting. And the next one, the first one in November, will be on November the 8th, Tuesday, November the 8th, in commemoration of Veterans Day during that week. We'll have a Veterans Roundtable with Clarence White and a group of veterans who meet for lunch monthly. And most of them are Vietnam veterans. So they'll be here to discuss their experiences in Vietnam and leaving the Fauquier area to serve as young men in our nation. So we hope you'll join us again. And thank you again, Darryl, for your wonderful presentation. We truly, truly appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you in Fauquier County next reunion, all right? It's on.
All righty. Take good care. Bye.